Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this edition of Slaying Kubernetes Complexity from a Developer Perspective. My name is Raghavan Srinivas, and with me I have Edward INL. Edward, can you say something just to make sure that we have exactly two voices and no more? Can you put a
Absolutely.
can
Absolutely.
you
Welcome,
everybody
everyone.
can someone at least put a thumbs up in the chat if you're hearing two voices and no more than two, please. Sounds good. Okay, so we are good to go. This is a 2 hour workshop where you're going to be learning by doing. It's not just like yet another virtual webinar. Get ready. For those of you who have done this before, you know the drill. We're going to use Gitpod to essentially, get your credentials imported and use that to actually go through the workshop. And again, you know that, it's all available. The instructions are self-explanatory. It's all available on GitHub, and you can follow along. Or if for whatever reason you're falling behind, no worries, because these are going to be available. We're going to be here to help you as much as we can. But let's get started. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to do a quick intro of the workshop, of ourselves, and so on. Then a quick intro of Nosql. Then we'll look at Cassandra, ASTRA, and how easy it is to be able to connect your application and to be able to save your data there, right? And then, of course, we're going to look at Quarkus, which is our kind of reactive platform based around Java. Makes it very easy to be able to kind of do hot reloading and things like that, that, a traditional Java developer was always longing for. And, we're not going to emphasize too much in this workshop, because this workshop is really more about containerization, which is the next part, which is how you build a lot of microservices. So, kind of the routine things you're going to do: test your application, push it to the registry, from there stand up your application, uh, you know, um, um, basically get your secrets, and make it available for the application. All of that, the traditional inner loop that was is still pretty complex from a developer perspective. We'll see how easy it is. It's an opinionated implementation, but it kind of gives you an idea of how quickly you can do things. And I'll stress that as we go along. Obviously, the live coding is the part where you're going to do a lot of the coding. We're going to set up the instance, and then there are a few things that you need to do before you can get started on the containerization part. And then eventually, we're going to deploy it to Lens, which is the nice thing about Lens is I don't need to worry about kubectl at all. Okay, and for those of you who are using Kubernetes before, Kubernetes is kubectl is a thing that a lot of people love to hate, right? So we'll talk about that. Then I'll follow it up with resources. But before we get any further, let me introduce myself. My name is Raghavan Srinivas. I just go by Rags for whatever reason. People in the world have a tough time pronouncing my name. So Rags is the easiest way. Rags not to riches, easiest way to remember me. I come from the Java side of the world, and I think Kubernetes is one of those things which has a lot of commonality in Java. I am a big fan of distributed systems. I love to teach and communicate, and that's why I like these workshops, because even with these workshops, I learn a lot. Even teaching the workshops, I learn a lot. I know that our audience is never hesitant to chat, so feel free to chat. Let me know if there is something that I got wrong or something that can be done better, improved, and so on and so forth. Because really, this is about kind of your workshop, right? So I'm passionate about the inner loop, which is really what I care about. Things that we do traditionally 50 times during the day, like again, testing the application, containerizing it, and all that. And how can we improve that? And you will see at least some flavor of that today. With that said, I'm really honored to have a guest speaker today. With that, I would like to introduce Edward INL. Hopefully, I'm saying this right. And Edward
You
from
are.
Germany, right? Guten Tag, and go ahead.
Yes, yes, yes. Rogs, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm originally from Germany, but I'm very much an American here in San Francisco, California. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop. Couldn't be more excited to be here with each and every single one of you, and even with Rogs today. I'm a developer advocate at Mirantis, specifically on Team Lens. Lens is a Kubernetes IDE that we built primarily to solve the complexity of Kubernetes. And this is something that Rogs touched on, where we're going to be removing the need to work with kubectl if you're a developer through Lens, which is something that's quite unique. A little bit about myself. I am a marketer at heart, but also very much a developer. Switched over to that many years ago now, and I'm very much focused also on building community. So we'll get to the point of where Lens is today in just a bit, but we've been able to scale this open source project from 0 users to roughly 800,000 active users. So it's been an incredible journey. Couldn't be more excited to be here with each and every single one of you, and I look forward to the in-depth presentation as well as hands-on workshop.
Thank you. I think I lost your audio. I don't know if anybody else can you. Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah,
Can you
maybe
hear
it
me?
was just a fraction of time there. We have an entire team behind us, and there is no way we can do these workshops, without this entire team. All of them, or some of them, are actually in the chat and kind of trying to help out. Um, I know there was a question from Sid, and I want to get it out of the way right away. Is this session useful in terms of data science using Python? I would say not at all. so, so I would let you make the call, Sid, if you want to hang on, and kind of learn something new, or you just want to leave. Perfectly fine. I'm a teacher at heart. When people walk out of the classroom, I don't take it personally. Okay, so that's fine. And again, feel free to chat, and let's move on. So, for those of you who have attended our workshops before, you know that one part of our workshop is Menti, and I'd advise you to whip out your cell phones, right? Because cell phones is probably the easiest way to do this, and I'll give you a URL and a code that you can use shortly. Okay, so with that said, let me go to Menti. All right, Menti, here we come. So let me present. And we are good to go. Let's see. We are not yet good to go. Okay. This is strange. But I think we can manage with this. Usually the presentation mode is a little different, but let me see if I can bring that back to that. All right, let's do the present again and see if it works. Okay, that's much better. All right, so here's the Menti and the code 61104421. And Edward, you're also welcome to try it out if you want. Just whip up your cell phone and try this out. Okay. And the first question we ask every, and this is really exciting for me every time. Um, oh, yeah, having a little bit of issues here, but let me see what's going on here. Okay, let's do it again. All right. So people joining the quiz, let's go with the next. Where in the world are you from? Just click the closest place that again, the code is in the top, 61104421 if you want to use that. Or you can just, no, actually you can't. So, 61104421, I'll also put this in the chat. Let's see, I have only 3 people joined yet. So let's hope for at least about 20 people, maybe at least 10. So again, menti.com, and use the code 61104421. All right, I see some people coming in. You can try it from your browser too, but cell phone is probably the easiest. And I see people coming in from USA, India, somebody from Indonesia. That's cool. A couple of people from India, 3 from India. Uh, yeah, very
Welcome,
cool,
everyone.
right? To
Welcome.
see these dots pop up is just amazing, right? So I don't see you, Edward, from San Francisco. Maybe you should put a dot for San Francisco. All right. All right. 8. I'm going to wait till 10 and then we can move on. All right. So, one thing I would advise you to do is kind of keep this going, because at the very end, we're going to have a quiz. And again, the best way to answer that quiz is through your mobile phone. Again, you can do it through the browser, but there is usually a time delay. And we have seen that, whenever we have an audience, um, usually, um, you know, there are really some fast people. I've tried to answer myself, and typically it takes. I'm not really fast, so get yourself all advantage you can by using the cell phone. All right, all right. So the link is www.menti.com. Okay, it's right here, and let's move on. So what is your experience level with Cassandra? Are you a beginner, or experienced developer, or administrator, or are you like a NoSQL guru? Use Cassandra in production. Okay, that's good. There's one person who is an experienced developer or administrator. Got to watch out. Most people, 2 are beginners. All right. Kind of, interesting to see all this, right? Let's see others answer too. Oh, NoSQL guru. We have a different audience today. Usually we find a lot of beginners, but let's see. Let's give it some more time. Again, to be able to answer these questions, you go to menti.com and use the code 61104421. Somebody is using Cassandra in production. Interesting. If you don't mind, if you put your company's name in chat, that'll be great. And the reason why I put Cassandra, and really we are not going to cover this in today's workshop, but the reason why I put it in was because of the Kubernetes connection, and we'll talk about all this. Oh, we have a different kind of audience today. So maybe we can skip on the early part and kind of jump straight to containerization, right? Um, okay. All right. Next question. What is your Kubernetes experience? I dream in kubectl. I hope not. I use kubectl a lot, but don't really like it. Like I said, we love to hate some tools. One person is new to Kubernetes development. I use kubectl sparingly. Anybody using Lens, if you want to, you put that in. I have a later question for whether you're going to use, whether you use Lens or not, but um, this should give us an idea. Okay, use kubectl sparingly. Nobody dreaming in kubectl. I didn't expect, but you never know, right? Most people are new to Kubernetes development, which is fine, and that's exactly what we thought. The audience is going to be. Somebody who has used kubectl sparingly, or somebody who's new to Kubernetes development and probably never used kubectl, right? So, all right, that gives us an idea. So I think we are in the right this thing. Quarkus experience. Oh, something went wrong there. Oh, okay. I am not a Java developer. I'm a Java developer, but never used Quarkus. Let's see. Let's keep going. Let's see how many. It's pretty even now, right? A lot of people never used Quarkus. Okay, which is kind of what we expected. And not a Java developer. No problem. You will still learn a lot today. Okay. Uh, we show a app which was built in Java, but really, it's a simple app, very easy to understand, and as long as you have some development experience or really an interest to learn, I think it should be all right. Okay. Two more questions and we should be done, and we'll get into, if you use Kubernetes, do you use Lens? Have you heard of Lens? Do you use it? Are people just wondering what is Lens? Let's give it a moment. Not really a Kubernetes developer. Yeah, understood. Yeah, understood. I don't use Lens, but I'm a Kubernetes developer. That's kind of the implication there, right? For that one person who's not using Lens, if you want to put in, or two people, you want to put in chat what tool you use. Oh, there's one person who's using Lens, and I feel like that's going to be Edward, or maybe not. Okay,
It
that's
was
cool.
not me, so that's exciting to see.
Oh, two
Welcome.
people. That's even more interesting. Okay, that's cool. Okay, kind of what we expected, right? We thought there may be some people who are using Lens, and for those people, we only show the deployment on Lens, but there are other parts of the inner loop that you can definitely benefit from. Okay, all right. Moving on. Last question. Is this your I should have said first DataStax Devs workshop? My apologies. Is this your first DataStax workshop? Yes, quite a few. We know we get some regulars. I don't know if they are on the on the workshop, but fifth or more workshop. Yeah, that's kind of somebody that we know. Lost count of how many workshops I attended. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Wow. Okay, we have some fans for sure. Um, but those of you who are here the first time, there is only one really complex step, I should say. I mean, it's really not that complex, but once you get past that, once you import your credentials into GitHub, and you'll see what that means in a second, or once we get there. After that, it's pretty straightforward. The app we're going to do is, we're going to open up GitHub. It's a visual IDE. We're going to build the Kubernetes manifest. We're going to take that Kubernetes manifest, use the secrets, and actually kind of deploy it on Lens, or deploy it using Lens onto your Lens desktop. So those of you who are here for the first time, don't be intimidated. It's going to be pretty easy to kind of work through this. All right. So the quiz is later. We will worry about that later. Okay, but let's go back to the presentation. Okay, and go to the next. All right. So we're in the Menti part. That's done. There are other resources that are available: GitHub, Gitpod, our ASTRA DB as a service, which we're going to use today, and I think we're going to touch on all of these today. Okay, so a lot of resources for you to help. So this quiz on Menti, we already did that. So let's move on. The objective for today is to create an inner loop, particularly from a developer perspective. We're going to see the workflow and so on. We're going to see tools that help a Kubernetes developer, particularly master the inner loop, right? So again, it's a little bit opinionated implementation, but it definitely helps from the perspective of kind of slaying the complexity, as we called it, of the inner loop. And it really eliminates the need for developers mastering kubectl. And we're going to build an application which kind of looks like this, right? Is to build a to-do app where you can put in your to-dos. And I actually use it myself, to put in my to-dos, okay? So with that said, that's a great segue into what is Lens. Edward, on to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Rogs, I imagine you are sharing the screen.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Perfect. I can see it. Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. What is Lens? Lens is a Kubernetes platform that was built to allow you to achieve full situational awareness of everything that's happening within the desktop application and everything that's actually happening within your Kubernetes clusters, from the resources to the deployments to the Helm charts that you want to deploy and so forth. The neat thing behind Lens is we've actually scaled this open source project significantly. So as of today, these numbers are somewhat outdated. As you can see, the stats have not been updated for some time. But as of today, we have over 800,000 active users leveraging Lens on a day-to-day basis. Excuse me, over 1 million clusters added, close to 20,000 GitHub stargazers, which we're very, very excited for. And it's been installed on over 4 million machines. Next slide, Rogs.
Sorry, give me a second. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So Lens is all you need to really take control of Kubernetes. It's a standalone desktop application. It's an Electron app with an MIT license that allows you to achieve full situational awareness of everything that's happening within your Kubernetes clusters. Now, the neat thing behind Lens is it works with any Kubernetes distro, regardless of the distro, as long as it's a certified distro. You also have the ability to manage multiple Kubernetes clusters, and we'll be touching that when we do the demo of Lens itself. You can navigate from a GKE cluster to a K0S cluster to a Minikube cluster and so forth. What's also nice about it is we're always respecting the role-based access control from your kubeconfig file. So just because somebody may have access to your kubeconfig file does not mean they can actually add it to Lens and begin making configuration changes, achieve full situational awareness of everything that's happening within the cluster. So there's various different security features and permissions that we've implemented to ensure that the person that's working with that kubeconfig file is respecting the role-based access control from that kubeconfig file. Next slide, Rox.
Yes.
Perfect. So this is a slide we love to throw up where we've actually gone ahead and interviewed many of our users, roughly 500 users. And we've come to the understanding that anybody working with Kubernetes is going to find significant value from Lens. At least this is something that we've understood from our users. So one interesting stat is Lens helps Kubernetes developers learn Kubernetes almost twice as fast. So at a 95% increase. We also learned that Lens is significantly reducing the amount of tools that a developer leverages on their desktop machine. So Lens has a CLI built in, Lens has a terminal, you can deploy resources, you can achieve full situational awareness, you can access multiple Kubernetes clusters and so forth. So really what we're doing is reducing your toolkit from 4 to 1. And my favorite stat here is we've identified that we actually increase productivity for anybody working with Kubernetes by roughly 20%. Meaning if you work with Kubernetes Monday through Friday, you are going to gain the entire day back where you don't actually need to work. Now, that's my own personal opinion, but we have actually quantified this data through our users, through various different surveys, where we've seen that on average, you're going to save roughly 2 hours a day when leveraging Lens, which is going to give you a full working day back into your portfolio. Next slide, please.
Good.
Perfect. So where does Lens fit within that development lifecycle of a Kubernetes developer? Well, if we think about what a developer has to do on their day-to-day basis, they're going to have to write some proprietary code, leveraging VS Code or whatever tool you'd like to leverage. You're going to need to leverage Docker potentially, Git, command lines, and so forth. So those terminals, those tools. And then, of course, you're going to need some form of CI/CD pipeline to actually be able to push that software, that application that you built on top of your Kubernetes environment itself. So where does Lens come in? For a developer, Lens actually comes in at the end of the development loop. It's going to allow you to deploy, view what that deployment looks like on top of your environment, whether it's production, proof of concept, development, and so forth. You're going to be able to test that deployment on top of your Kubernetes cluster, and it allows you to actually access real-time pod logs to help you troubleshoot to identify why that particular deployment may not be running successfully on top of your environment. And as mentioned, it works with any certified Kubernetes distro, regardless of the distro, as long as it is certified. Next slide,
Yeah.
Rox.
I know there is a question on chat. Sai Reddy is asking, how to add a cluster in Lens, and I'm sure you're going to get to it later, right? So we'll keep it for later. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We will touch on that just once we get into the demo itself.
Yeah.
So from here, we can navigate to the, yep, you're on the correct slide. Excellent. So Lens isn't just for Kubernetes developers. It's very much for the operational folk as well. Anybody working with Kubernetes. So from site reliability engineers, cluster administrators, they're going to actually leverage Lens in the earlier stage of their workflow. So if I'm a Kubernetes SRE, I may have 5 production clusters within my environments. I want to take a look at the health and the status of those clusters, maybe as soon as I wake up, every couple of hours. I want to review the real-time events of those clusters. We're going to want to take a look at our deployments here as well. Is there a drop in lifecycle management? Did a pod fail? Did a pod succeed? Is it currently running? And of course, if they need to, they'll also be able to troubleshoot in real time. So we touched on developers, how Lens comes in towards the end of their workflow. For operators and site reliability engineers, it's going to come in at the beginning of their workflow to really understand the overall health of their clusters and be able to manage multiple Kubernetes clusters. So from here, Rogs, we'll go to 2 slides. So slide 18, we'll skip the features at a glance slide and take a look at some of the features from a high level of what we have within Lens. And then once we get to the demo, we'll actually deep dive into these features themselves. So the first feature that we're taking a look at is the unified catalog. And the unified catalog should be thought of as almost a place where you can have multiple resources to allow you to work a little bit more quickly. Specifically, what I mean by that is in your catalog, you can have various different Kubernetes clusters. You can have various different web links to access documentation. You can have different automations within your catalog as well. And we think of this as a unified location within Lens that's going to allow you to create specific workflows when working with Kubernetes. So if I'm a Kubernetes developer, maybe new to Kubernetes, I can have my cluster there. I can have significant documentation that's going to allow me to perform whatever action I would like to perform all in real time. So you can create this workflow that you're very much interested in to be more productive and efficient. Then we have browse and organize feature. I don't necessarily call these features. I are kind of like add-ons to me. Really, what that's going to do is it's going to allow and add specific resources in real time. Quit my Slack as well as my mail because I'm getting pinged and getting notifications. So I apologize for that. Rogs, next slide.
Yeah, and that may explain a little bit because your audio broke up a little, but that's fine.
Go ahead.
So you're on the see everything in right context, real time slide.
Yes, that's fine. Yes. Perfect. So here, what Lens allows us to do is we leverage Prometheus, whether you have your own Prometheus or will actually install it directly on your cluster. And it's going to allow you to actually achieve that full situational awareness, what I just mentioned. So you'll see your metrics, your CPU, your network, your disk, your capacity of the cluster, the deployment metrics as well, all in real time. So you're going to be able to achieve, and I keep using this phrase, that full situational awareness of everything that's happening within your Kubernetes cluster and the resources and deployments within. Next slide, Rogs. Excellent. We also have one of my favorite features, a smart terminal, which is going to come bundled with kubectl and Helm CLIs to allow you to manage and deploy and adjust, configure things within your Kubernetes environment. The neat thing about the smart terminal is when I switch from my K0S cluster to my Mirantis Kubernetes engine cluster, the smart terminal is going to automatically sync to the correct version of the kubectl that is associated to that cluster. And that's going to allow me to always work in the correct context when working with that Kubernetes cluster itself. So I can go from cluster to cluster while always being ensured that I'm in the correct context of that cluster. This is significantly going to reduce user error when working with multiple Kubernetes clusters.
Yeah, I like the kubectl, the fact that you have to use kubectl if you, if you're really stuck or something like that, right? So I think
Yes,
it's cool, and the fact that it keeps in sync is tremendous. Yeah.
absolutely. Next slide, please. 22. Cool. So another very interesting feature within Lens is the ability to identify and deploy Helm charts directly to your environment through the click of a button. So you can explore thousands of different repositories, thousands of different Helm charts, and actually deploy these Helm charts to your environment through a click of a button. So it's really packaged for you. You click install, it'll deploy all of the necessary resources for that particular Helm chart directly into your Kubernetes cluster. And we'll take a look at this feature as well during the demo. Next slide, please. Perfect. Another thing that I want to touch on here is extensions. And this actually just expands the capabilities of Lens much more than it being a Kubernetes IDE or let's say an observability tool or configuration changing tools to your Kubernetes environment. Really what this allows us to do is work with organizations like DataStax, work like organizations like Snyk, and develop extensions or plugins that is going to enhance the feature set of Lens and leverage other cloud native technologies within the space to give our users more features. So I can give an example here. Aqua Security has built an extension on top of Lens that actually allows you to scan containers and the images within your environment all in real time to identify vulnerabilities within your environment. We also have other extensions for Mirantis Container Cloud that's going to actually allow you to connect your Kubernetes platform and environment to Lens in a second without actually having to add a kubeconfig file, and various other extensions that really enhance the capabilities of Lens for our users. So we like to think of this in two ways. One, we're helping out our users access more awesome cloud native technologies. And two, we're really helping those cloud native technologies access thousands of users, right? As mentioned, we have over 800,000 users. So it's a win-win both for our partner organizations as well as our users. And that is something that's so near and dear to my heart when we try to build a community. Next slide.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about two cool features here as well. And I just want to mention that we are just doing a high level of all the features within Lens on these slides. We'll do a much more of a deep dive later today. But another fantastic feature within Lens is called Lens Teamwork. And Lens Teamwork allows cluster administrators to create a collaborative space where they can share a Kubernetes cluster without exposing the kubeconfig file to a team of individuals. So let me give an example here to really set the stage. I have a team of developers that may need to access a namespace with some microservices within that namespace. I can actually share access to that Kubernetes cluster through Lens Teamwork without ever exposing the kubeconfig file to that particular developer. So really what I would do is I have my 5 developers that need to access that namespace. I can send them a link. That link is going to open up this collaborative space within Lens. They'll have access to that cluster, and we can create granular permissions on top of that to ensure that they're working within the correct namespace that we have selected. Another example here is you have a support team that needs to access something within the Kubernetes cluster. Instead of giving them access to the kubeconfig file, which we all know has tons of security concerns, tons of security requirements to ensure you are working in the proper governance. Instead, we can just shoot them a link. They'll never have access to the kubeconfig file, and we can grant and revoke access to that colleague, to that team in a matter of seconds. So this is a very, very cool feature where I can have Rogs actually access my Minikube cluster that's running locally on my machine and make configuration changes, view my deployments, edit the pods, or so forth. So super, super cool feature here where we're eliminating the need of developers having to wrangle one with kubectl and kubeconfig files. Next slide, Rogs.
LDK.
LDK, yes. So today we'll be taking a look at Lens Desktop Kubernetes. It's a local optimized development environment that you can deploy with one click of a button directly in Lens. It comes with Docker CLI built in, allowing you to build images directly in Lens as well, which is a new exciting feature. And it also, again, allows anybody getting started with Kubernetes to access this optimized development environment without the need to wrangle with kubectl, start a Minikube cluster, leverage Docker Desktop, and so forth. So really what we're trying to give our users here is one, for the experienced developers, an optimized environment for their development needs. And for the people just getting started with Kubernetes, we're able to give them a Kubernetes cluster for free immediately through the click of a button. There's some awesome things that are also happening within LDK. For example, the intelligent auto shutdown. So Lens is able to detect whether or not this cluster is being used. And if we determine that it's not being used, we'll actually be able to pause that cluster for you to really ensure that your laptop or your machine is not going crazy. Lastly, I want to mention that LDK is based on a Kubernetes distro called K0s, which is open source and certified, and is also built by Team Lens and Mirantis. So you can deploy that cluster on bare metal, in the public cloud, wherever you really want to deploy it. But Lens is leveraging K0s for our feature LDK. Next slide, please. Excellent. We just wanted to share some resources for everybody here with us today. So where you can download Lens, it's k8lens.dev. Here is actually our website. It's free to download and to get started. So you click download, it'll download this Electron app on your machine and you can get started. And then of course, we thought it was very important to also include a getting started guide with Lens. That is super straightforward, very easy to get started and so forth. But we will be touching on all of these features in the demo later today. And with that, Rogs, I would love to hand it back over to you. And thank you again for pushing us through each and every single slide. I know it's probably not so fun when I mention next slide, but that was the easiest for me. So thank you.
No worries. All right, just give me 1 second before I switch to the right screen. Okay, and again, let me know if there are more than 2 voices. Sometimes I've had the music running for a while, but hopefully it's all good now. And Edward, you can go on mute if you want for a little bit. You know, get some water or whatever that case may be, right? And we will be. I know that all of you are itching to kind of get your hands, you know, hands on, right? So we're going to do that in just a little bit, okay? So just for a quick introduction of NoSQL, nothing really. Oh, let me see. Did I get this right? Okay. I have too many things working here. Okay. So basically, it was really a name that was supposed to be a little catchy, something that will, you know, catch on really. You know, and that was the hashtag that was invented sometime in 2009. So it's not really something new. It's been around for a while, and like I described, you know, Cassandra, it was there even before the cloud was there. But it shares a lot of properties. Give me 1 second on this because I think I made a mistake here. Let me put this back to the right, and now I'm back. Okay, so basically, what it, you know, it was there even before the cloud, but actually shares a lot of properties that kind of complement the cloud. You know, there are certain things like, for example, high availability and all that, which is automatically built in. You know, being able to distribute your data across multiple nodes, all of that happens auto-magically for you. You don't have to worry about any of those. But really, what NoSQL is is something other than your traditional relational database that you used to, right? Because with relational database, you can scale up, 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 and up, but at some point it's going to fall down, right? Because it's just too big. With a NoSQL database, typically what you do is you distribute it across commodity hardware, and that way you're able to handle it. So you will see today how it's a good match with Kubernetes, because Kubernetes also, a lot of those things are based on that. Okay. All right. So again, like I said, the idea is that you distribute the data across multiple partitions, and I don't need to worry about anything. My oversimplified view of what a NoSQL database is, it's a distributed hash table. I don't need to worry about how the data is distributed. I don't need to worry about resilience of data, because there are multiple copies of that, usually 3 copies, but sometimes more than that, and so on. But as we all know in software, nothing comes for free. There is something called as CAP theorem, which talks about 3 properties: consistency, availability, and partition tolerance. Okay, so consistent and availability kind of, it's kind of intuitive, it's kind of what you think it is, right? But partition tolerance is basically being able to work even when there is a partition in your system for whatever reason. And when everything is working fine, you're no problem, hunky dory, nothing is a problem. But when a failure happens, which is typical in distributed systems, right? You have to sacrifice one property. You can have only 2, pick 2, right? And usually partition tolerance is something that nobody wants to sacrifice. No NoSQL, because the data looks so inconsistent that even my grandmother can figure that out, right? So what generally you see is either a CP system or an AP system, okay? And with that said, Cassandra is an AP system, and that's all I want to say about that. But let's move on to what exactly it means. It's no single point of failure. It really scales for writes and reads. And one of the cool things about this, as has been described by some of the users of Cassandra, is the linear scalability part. You double the nodes, the performance doubles. You double it again, it goes up again. You go by 8 times, it's just linear, and it's very hard to achieve that in a distributed system, believe it or not, because at some point it becomes asymptotic, meaning there is really no gain even if you add nodes. But on the other hand, with Cassandra, because of its simplicity, it does a pretty good job at linear scaling. Okay. One thing we have a thing in data stacks is don't let your friends shard. Sharding is hard. Okay, so let the platform take care of it, and that's why we use NoSQL, some kind of platform. Just let the platform worry about it. So a lot of these distinctions between this AP and CP systems and all that I was talking to you about is actually kind of blurring a little bit, right? Because you can make a Cassandra database, like eventually, I mean, you can make it strongly consistent from eventually consistent. Eventually consistent is when, let's say I'm working on a leaderboard, and for 8 seconds or 8.2 seconds or whatever the case may be, I am not on top of the leaderboard even though I am supposed to be, right? Which is probably okay in most scenarios, and actually even in kind of where you require ACID properties like atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability, it's probably okay. But if you really want strong consistency, and what that means is you're going to read the last one that you wrote, you can do that as well. The only problem is, again, remember the CAP theorem? Only 2 of the 3 is going to be present, right? Partition tolerance and consistency. Now I'm going to loosen the availability part of it, right? So, but that's the way it works. Okay. Some huge logos here, and the idea again is not to kind of talk about. This is really not meant to be a marketing slide, but the idea again is these logos or these companies are using this because of the linear scalability part of it. Data is globally distributed. We have something called as a ASTRA DB service that you're going to be using today. It's database as a service. It's serverless. It's auto-scalable. I don't need to do anything. I just hit a button. I put in my email. In fact, you can use your GitHub handle, and you will get a $25 per month credit, which actually is significant enough to run some fairly heavy production workloads, which is kind of cool, right? No credit card required, which is kind of cool again. We have a number of different APIs, especially from a developer perspective, and I know that there are a lot of developers out here. There are a number of different APIs that are actually supported, primarily GraphQL, REST, gRPC, and so on. And again, from a microservices, from a Kubernetes point of view, gRPC is kind of cool. All of these are unified in the Stargate, and like I said before, you get a $25 per month credit. This slide is actually not really required today, but I guess it's required because I'm talking to a Kubernetes audience. We're not going to go into Cassandra cluster, but essentially what Cassandra is it's Kubernetes or Cassandra running on Kubernetes. Okay, I think it's a pretty cool play on the words. So at this point, what I wanted to do is create the AstraDB instance. Okay, to do that, pretty straightforward. Okay. I'm going to go into my GitHub repository. Okay, so let's see. This is my GitHub repo. Okay, and I'm just going to make this full screen just so that it's just easier, right? And follow along, right? It has everything in there. How do I containerize Quarkus and Cassandra? And I'm just going to walk through this, okay? What is the objective of the workshop? What are the materials available? So if you click on slide deck, you'll get the slide deck and so on. And this is the different learning paths. What I recommend today you do is just do the containers in inner loop part, because if you do slide exercises steps 1 to 10, it's probably going to take you a while, okay? So what I would suggest you do is verify the connection and then skip steps 7, 8, and 9 and just go straight to 10, which is containerization part, okay? So how do I create the AstraDB instance? Just click on this, astra.datastacks.com, okay? And you will be dropped into, to the link. So let me put in the link here. You can say either GitHub, okay, or I can do Astra as well, and hopefully it should give you the link as well, okay? So I'm not going to show you all that. I'm already in the Astra DB console, right? So all that I need to do is put my username and password and sign in. Okay. So I'm in. And you'll see all the databases running and so on and so forth. Okay, and I already have something called as the database workshops. So what is suggested here is to be able to create something called as a workshops database. Okay, so again, just follow the steps. It talks about start free now, and put the database name as workshops and the key space name is to-do list. Some people ask, what is so cool about, or what is a key space? Basically that's the question. And really what a key space is a logical grouping of tables, and you'll see that today, because in fact we're going to use only one table which has all the to-do items, but just in case you are having more tables for a particular app, you can kind of put them in one key space and so on. So you create the database, provide the name for the workshop as workshops, name for the database as workshops, and the name for the key space is to-do list. Okay, so I'll wait for you guys to kind of create this, and even if it's in a pending state, you really want to change, you want to wait for the status to change to active. But even if it gets into pending, it's fine. Just put in a thumbs up in the chat once you're done, okay, or once it's ready. Okay, if you already have a database with the database name workshops, all that you need to do is create a new key space name called to-do list. If you already have a key space name to-do list, I don't know why you're in the workshop. I'm just kidding. You don't really have to do this, again. Okay. All right. We'll get to the create Astra token part and all that in a second. But let me see some thumbs up of people who are able to create the database. This is typically what we do. We kind of have a frequent sync to make sure that none of you are running into major issues. What you're going to do is you're going to pick the region. Google regions are available for free. If you want a particular region or a particular cloud provider, usually Google Cloud is available for free. But and pick any region. It really doesn't matter. For this workshop, typically you would pick something that's close to where you are or close to where most of your users are. And once you have created the database, let me know so that we can proceed. And let us know if you are having issues, creating the database. All right, let's give it a couple of minutes. Anybody being able to create the database? And let me get some coffee so that I've been talking a lot. So let's take a quick pause to figure out if anybody is having issues creating the database. Anybody created the database yet or not yet? If you're running into issues, again, don't just follow this GitHub link. Okay, I'll put that in again in the chat. Okay, and you should have all the instructions in pretty detail. So you create the AstraDB instance. Okay, provide the database name as workshops and key space name as to-do list. Okay, I will stop talking for a little bit so that I'll let you guys, nothing more irritating than somebody talking on your back when you're trying to do some work, right? So hopefully I'll get at least one thumbs up before I proceed. But again, if you're falling behind, don't worry about it. You can always catch up. I don't see any thumbs up yet, which is a little concerning, but hopefully you guys are busy creating it, or you've already created it. But if you are having troubles, let us know. Yeah, Peter, I do deserve a break for water. All set. Done creating DB. Abdul Nasser, thank you for giving the thumbs up. All right, so let's proceed. Because we have a lot of material to cover. I mean, I think we're doing all right because, usually by this point I'm 1+ hour in. But I think we're doing okay today. All right, let me adjust the... give me 1 second. All right. All right. For some reason, I'm not able to do that, but I'll try later. Okay. Not sure what's going on. Okay, it's not too bad, I guess, but we'll keep going. Okay. So we created the first, the AstraDB instance. We named the database as workshops and the key space as to-do list. You can use different names, but you'll have to make some slight changes to your program. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Moving on. Let's look at Quarkus because that's the platform that we're going to be using today. Why Quarkus? Why not another platform? Because obviously Kubernetes development, you can do it in Python, you can do it in whatever language you want, right? But this is just, again, a sample, an opinionated implementation, like I said before. And Quarkus is really cool because you will see some features today that make it very easy to push the Dockerized image to a registry, and really don't even have to do all that. You can just stand it up and it will do everything for you. It's going to build the Docker image. It's going to create a Kubernetes manifest. It's going to push it to the registry, and it's going to stand up. Again, very cool from a inner loop perspective because I don't need to worry about anything like having to go through all of the steps, because I've done this many times, and sometimes I forget one thing, and that's kept me, like awake for like 2 hours trying to figure out where the hell did I get it wrong, right? So those are kind of the things that you don't need to worry. It's really designed for a cloud native kind of environment, really about microservices, which is why it has some really cool support for Kubernetes, and you will see that all today in the workshop. Okay. What does a typical Java framework do? It does a lot of things at runtime, unfortunately, okay, or fortunately, because that was the intention behind Java, is to, because you want to provide a platform agnostic manner, you want to do as minimal as possible at build time, but do as much as possible at runtime, so that it's able to work with different platforms. But turn it around, and what Quarkus does is it takes all the build time, or takes the penalty at build time, and then makes the runtime really short. So what is the idea behind this? If I'm starting up my app in a container, I want it to start like that, right? And you can do that because what you do is you're going to take a penalty for building it, for doing it at build time rather than doing it at runtime. And today we have an example, and I would strongly urge you guys to try that out, where you're going to build a native image using what is referred to as a Graal VM. The Graal VM and all that is automatically installed for you when you bring up Gitpod, and I'll talk about that in a second. Even though it's not part of containerization technically, I mean, you can build a native image, and actually you can you can containerize that native image also, which we don't go through this in workshop, but if you want, you can try that as well. So again, the idea is that it enables native compilation. You need something called as the Graal VM, to make this happen. And we have, like I said, installed it already. And all that you need to do is, use Maven. And that's the cool thing about Quarkus, is that, it doesn't significantly change the way in which you do development. It's still exactly the same way, but it provides a lot of cool features like hot reloading, debugging, and so on and so forth, which you will see again, if you're interested. And that's the cool thing. It's just Java after all. You just use Maven just like you did before. You just use IntelliJ like you did before. If you can use Eclipse IDE like you did before, or you can use just VI and Emacs if if that's exactly what you want. But the whole idea behind this is about inner loop and developer productivity, and you will see this yourself. So I'm not gonna really talk too much about this, because seeing or doing is believing, right? So we'll see that. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but again, you can do native Java. So now the last part that I'm going to talk about is the microservices part, which is using Quarkus and Cassandra. And if you have seen the evolution of how programs have evolved, you started with monoliths, then multi-tiers, you had the 3-tier applications, 2-tier applications, whatever, right? And then you had what are called as service-oriented architecture, right? Where everything is services. Microservices is kind of a similar concept, but really the idea behind this is that each microservice, not necessarily tiny, but has a limited functionality, and only that functionality, so that you can kind of plug and play them. But more importantly, what you can do is you can deploy them independently. So let's say I'm using some kind of login service. I can keep the entire product just the same, but I can deploy it to only 20% of the user population by changing the login service, and all of that is facilitated using microservices. There are a number of advantages, number of disadvantages, as you can figure out, but let's not worry too much about that. One of the primary things that you kind of inherit is the complexity of microservices, right? But there are a lot of tools, a lot of things that are evolving, to make it easier. Okay. We have written an extension, which is why, which is what you're going to see here. And again, automatically installed for you. You don't have to worry about any of these. It uses a concept of what is referred to as reactive programming. And what this means is it does a lot of things asynchronously, meaning a thread doesn't have to wait for the function to complete. There are ways of getting around this. Okay, so this is reactive programming. And all that you need to do to use Quarkus, or so to use Cassandra and Quarkus, is to provide the credentials. And that's exactly what you're going to be doing in your workshop today. You're going to be providing the username, the password, and what we refer to as a Secure Connect bundle. So you're going to take the Secure Connect bundle and you're going to import it into Gitpod, and I'll show you all of that in a second. And once you're done that, you're good to go. And there is whole, let's not spend too much time on this, but suffice to say that our code base, you can walk through this. There is driver session support and there is object mapper support, where you can take your data and convert it into objects, because that's how you want to deal with it in many of the languages. There is support for mutiny types. Again, everything got to do with reactive programming. So I talked quite a bit about that, and I think once you start using it, you will like it more and more and see how it's applicable to a Kubernetes slash microservices environment. Okay. So with that said, the whole goal for today is to create a to-do app. And I was blown away by the support for to-do from the community. there there is whole bunch of languages where they have to-do apps, so you can just use the to-do app. Or what you can do is you can create a REST service for to-do, and then you have a built-in, like a framework or a platform where you can test this service. Pretty cool. Okay, so that's the reason why we're doing this. And again, very simple table. For those of you who are Cassandra users, you know that there is something called as a partition key, where here you can see that user ID is the partition key, and that's how the items are distributed. And then within the partition key, you have another key which kind of sorts, and that's where the item ID comes in as well. But again, you don't need to worry too much about this. Once you're in development mode, you can use a /q/dev. So if you go into exercise 7 or exercise 8, you can kind of walk through this. It's not necessary for you to do this, but I have a suspicion that especially if you're developing this application for the first time, you're going to use this quite a bit. And then once you're ready with that, then you start containerizing it, pushing it to Kubernetes, and so on. So take a look at this /q/dev. It talks about the REST API and all that, but we're going to underemphasize that in today's workshop, because we want to focus really mostly on the containerization part. And like I said before, you can select all kinds of MVC frameworks. You just go to todomvc.com, and I'd be happy to kind of bring that up, but I really don't have too much time here. There are a whole bunch of examples. Okay, AngularJS. I don't know. There are so many platforms that I'd never heard of before. Okay, there is something in Rust. You can see here, Silone, Django. I have no idea. You can look at the front end, the back ends, but the goal for today is, like I said, to be able to create something like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the front end, then the back end, and the database is going to be in an ASTRA service. And this is the cool part. In fact, when I was working with Edward, all that he did was, kind of create the ASTRA DB instance, get the secrets, deploy it into his lens, and he was good to go. He didn't even have to build the Kubernetes YAML, because what he did was he used mine, right? Something along those lines. So it makes it very easy to be able to plug in the services. Okay. Believe it or not, the most complex step is step 2, where you're going to take you're going to adjust the tokens, and like I said, you're going to take the Secure Connect bundle and drop it into Gitpod. Okay, so maybe I'm going ahead of myself. So let me show you how this actually works in action. Okay, again, same thing as before, right? I've already created the ASTRA token. Oh no, I haven't showed you that. So what you're going to do for creating an ASTRA token is go to organization settings. Okay, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but essentially you can see here, you go into organization settings. Okay, and then you click on token management. Okay, and then select a role. Okay, and we just kind of go with administrator. Okay, you can make it a little bit more granular, but for the purposes of the workshop, you can see I've already generated a lot of tokens, and what you're going to do is you're going to do a generate token. And here's the part: you're going to copy this client ID and this client secret and keep it somewhere, okay? Because this is something that you're going to be using. You're not going to be using the tokens, so don't worry about it. But one of the things that happens, and this happens quite a bit to our workshop attendees, is if you navigate away from this page, this is lost, okay? So your client ID and client secret is gone, okay? And there is really no way of retrieving that. But again, not to worry, because all that you need to do is create a new token, right? And again, for the purposes of workshop, it's okay. And as you can see, I myself have a lot of tokens that I play around with. Okay, so I've done all that, right? So I've copied the client ID, I've copied the client secret. What is the next step? Again, go back to my GitHub, right? So it talks about, notice the clipboard icon. You can take the client ID, the client secret, copy it and keep it somewhere, okay? And now you can launch Gitpod. And again, this might seem a little confusing, but what you can do is you can open this in a new window. This is which is what I suggest, but it's really up to you. If you want to open it in a new tab, that's fine too. And actually, I have opened it in a new tab. And when you open the link in the new window, okay, it's bringing up the window, right? And it's going to create a new one, okay? It's preparing the workspace and all that, but I'm not going to worry about this because I've already created this, right? So it's going to take a few moments, and it's going to drop me into a Git pod. So I'm going to open this workspace, okay? And typically what happens is, it's going to come up pretty soon. It's a visual IDE. It's actually a VS Code. For those of you who use VS Code, it's exactly the same except that it's in the cloud. Okay, there are some features which may not be in on par, but for the most part, you're good. Okay, so the thing you notice here is that I have this pretty much Explorer window, as it's referred to. You have an editor window, which is in the top right. Okay, so you have the Explorer window on the left. On the top right, you have the editor window. And then this is the terminal window where it's doing some setup right now. As you can see, it's installing GraalVM. Okay, so it's installing kubectl so that I can use kubectl if I have to. But I probably don't need to, especially if you're using Lens and so on. But this is probably going to take a little bit of time. Okay, so not to be concerned. You can bring that up and just let it go, and then you will be good to go at one point. You can bring up new bash windows here. Okay, so if for example I do git remote -b, for example, it'll tell me what repository. What is it? Oh my, remote. That's not going to help. So this is my the Git repository that I'm using for my code. Okay, so it tells me all that. If I do a git status, it'll tell me that my application properties has been changed. You can see here my application properties has been changed, and this is where I'm going to inject the credentials. Okay, and you will see that. So what I will do is I'll show you the application properties. Okay, main resources. You can do all this. There are other ways of opening this which is suggested. And if you look at the application properties, all that I do is I add the username and the password. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to add the username and the password on the appropriate line, as you can see here. Okay, just add the username and the password and you're good to go. That's pretty much it. Nothing else needs to be done. Oh, I lied. There is one more thing that needs to be done. Okay, and let me go back again to the GitHub repository. Okay, once you launch the Git pod, you've done with everything, know your Git pod, take a moment to understand it, right? And then what you're going to do is set up the application properties, which I already showed you. If I just do a GP open, it's going to open up the file in the editor window, and you can change it, put the username and the password, and you're good to go. Okay, but there is one last thing that needs to be done, and this is a tricky one. Okay, so what you need to do is you want to create, you want to import the security bundle. Okay, and I've done this already for my Git part. Okay, but this is a little tricky. And what you want to do is, you want to click on workshops. Okay, and you want to go to connect. Okay, and you'll see here, you have a Java, Node.js, Python, whatever. It doesn't really matter which language because you're using the same bundle. But when you click on this language, it shows you the download bundle. And what you do is you just download this bundle. Okay, so it'll download the Secure Connect bundle. And what it is going to do is it's going to download it locally. Okay, so once you have it running locally, and all of this is explained in the GitHub repository, in the GitHub instructions, then what you're going to do is you're going to drop it into Gitpod. Okay, so how do I drop it into Gitpod? So let me go into Gitpod. Okay, and let me show you that I've already done this before, so I don't need to worry too much about this. Okay, but for you, you'll have to do this. Oh, Secure Connect. Okay, and you'll see that it's roughly about 12K. Okay, that we have simplified this process, but I've not adapted the workshop yet for that. But it's all that you need to do is finder window or something like that. Take the Secure Connect workshops, right, and drop it into Gitpod. Okay, so let's do it. Let's try that again. I'm gonna get out of full screen mode. Come on. Okay, and now I'm gonna bring the Finder window. Okay, I'm gonna find that zip file, and you will see that this will be highlighted, right? And you can drop it in there. I'm not gonna do that, or maybe I'll do that. What the heck, right? And it's asking me, do you want to replace it? I'll say no, but if you want, you can replace that as well. Okay, so the critical part, and again, this is explained in the instruction, is that your zip file should be roughly about 12K. Otherwise, you've done something wrong. Just go ahead and kind of do it again. Okay. All right. So we are getting very close to be able to kind of work through this. The first thing I would recommend you do is make sure that you have the right connection. Okay, to be able to do that, all that I do is run this Maven command. And when you run it the very first time around, it will take a little bit of time because it's as everybody says, Maven kind of downloads the entire world, right? So it's going to download the world, and you will be ready to go. But I have already done all that, so I'm going to run my test and see if it's working. If this doesn't work, then something is wrong. Either you got the application properties ID password wrong, or you did not import the zip file. But if you have done all this, then you can move straight to the containers part. If you get a success on this, you're good to go. You can go straight to the containers part. But if you are like me, a little bit curious about Quarkus, then what you can do is you can kind of go through this, the other exercises as well. And you will see here, it gives you a lot of information about what kind of frameworks are being used. If you're really interested in all of this, you can kind of look at it. You can see that the Vertex framework is used, which is for basically the reactive programming and so on. But one of the things you're looking for is to see if this table got created, right? It should if you get a success, but never hurts, right? To be doubly sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grep for table. Okay, and all of this again explained in the instruction. Okay, because you can run this any number of times, it doesn't matter, right? So grep minus I table. All right, coming up in a second. And the awkward pause moment here, right? So you can see here table created is true. Okay, and really, if you're keen on kind of following along, what I would recommend you do is run this app as a local app in a Quarkus dev mode. Okay, so to be able to run this, all that I do is I run it with Quarkus dev and skip test. You don't really technically need to containerize this, but It doesn't hurt, right? So I'm going to go into Git part again, and I'm going to run this, okay? And hopefully, I haven't done this in a while because I was keeping straight to the containers part. So hopefully this is going to work. We'll see. All right. So this is a port that's used by the debugger. So I'm not going to worry too much about the debugger part. But here's the service itself available on port 8080. I'm going to open it in a browser and see what happens. Okay. And you can see here, Firefox prevented this site from opening a pop-up window. So, what you can do is you can just allow pop-ups and hopefully it'll come up now. Okay, and there is my to-do app. Okay, presentation and live coding. Okay, sorry, I can't spell. And you can get rid of some of these. You can mark them as complete. So it's a fairly sophisticated to-do app that we are going to containerize pretty shortly. I'm not going to go through the instructions of containerize because it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so let's go into the exercise 10, and if you want to skip straight to exercise 10, you can start from the index. Okay, but make sure you have the connection tested and all that. Okay, because again, it's all about test-driven development, right? You can skip Quarkus dev mode, you can skip debugging, you can skip packaging, but all of them are cool, believe me. Okay, but you can go straight to containerizing. So for containerizing, I'm just going to have to talk a little bit. We use something called as GITHUB container extension. This is the one that makes it happen. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something called as GITHUB/workspace/Quarkus intro demo, right? And all of the contents of GITHUB are going to put into the container, and that's how I move the security bundle into the container, right? So I copy the secure connect workshops.zip into this GITHUB subdirectory, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the container. Okay, so let me show this in action. All right, so let's not worry about this. I'm going to get rid of this because I'm not interested in that, right? So let me do a Docker images. Okay, and you'll see that there's probably git pod Quarkus Cassandra. I'm going to get rid of that. Docker, is it RMI? Git pod / Quarkus. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that. What did I get wrong? Oh. Okay, so I've gotten rid of that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the Docker image. Okay, so to be able to build a Docker image, again, the instructions are pretty straightforward. All that I do is I clean the package and skip, whatever, right? Quarkus is a great framework for doing testing, but unfortunately, we don't do too much testing here. Okay, the first test, verify the connection, and then we're good to go. Okay, so we clean package, build true. So this is the thing that I was talking to you about. Okay, so here all that I'm doing is I'm doing a build. Okay, but after that, there are ways in which I can push it to any registry that you want, any Docker registry, right? And then stand it up from there. Okay. All right, let's see. This is going to take a little bit of time, and actually, if you go into the native image part, that takes even longer. So just be patient. But let me go back and look at Docker images now. Okay, and hopefully this should be built. This was built just 21 seconds ago, right? And you can run Docker from here itself. Okay, so this talks about how to do that. And again, sometimes I don't remember the instructions myself. So, what is going on here? Okay, so what I do is I again go back to if I want to run it here locally. Okay, I run this, and you will see how this works. Again, typical things that you do in the inner loop development, right? So I run this thing. A service is available on port 8080. Okay, and again I open browser, and this time it shouldn't ask for preferences. And there you go. There's the presentation complete. All of this is in my persisted in my Astra database. Okay. All right, so we are doing pretty well in terms of time. So I did all the 2, 3, 4, and actually I did 5 and 6 as well. So in 2, 3, and 4, what did we do? Just to recap, we created a token, right? Remember to copy the ID and the password, right? Which is, I think, believe the client and secret or something like that. Okay, but all of the instructions are in there. Keep it somewhere handy. Once you bring up Git pod, then what you're going to do is you're going to plug in the ID and password in the application.properties file, right? Remember that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the secure connect bundle, put it locally, and then copy it into Git pod. And I've showed you how to do that, right? Or the instructions kind of go through that as well. And now you've set up the application, you're good to go. Just make sure it's good to go by testing the connection. We did the testing the connection as well. And then what we're going to do is you can try some of the Quarkus stuff if you're interested. But what we are really keen on is the deploy to lens, containerize and deploy to lens. And again, the instructions kind of go through this. So let's kind of take a brief look. I'm not going to demonstrate this because I really don't have a whole lot of time here. You're going to do a Docker login. Okay, you'll need a Docker ID, obviously. Okay, and it's going to use that Docker ID to actually push it. We add an extension for Kubernetes, and here we're going to package, and eventually we're going to push it. You can see here Docker container image push is equal to true. Okay, so once you do this push is equal to true, it's going to push it to the registry, and actually, I think here somewhere here we probably also say, yeah, build is equal to true and push is equal to true will stand it up. Okay, so you can kind of take a look at this, and what's going to happen. Initially, it may not work because you don't have a Kubernetes cluster up and ready, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to generate a Kubernetes YAML file, okay, and you will see this in the target directory. Okay, I know a lot of things to worry about, but all of these are explained pretty well. So this is the Kubernetes YAML that was generated, and you can see here the same Quarkus Cassandra 0.01, but it's also going to use my somewhere in there should be a Raxinus, okay, which is my, oh, maybe not, because I haven't done the push. Once you do this, it'll do all the push properly, and actually let me show that in action. Maybe that's useful. Let me go with this and see if this works. Okay, so no more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push it, and let's see what happens here. Oh, I didn't do a Docker login, so this is not going to work. So let me do the Docker login. All right, so this is good. Now let me see if I can push it. At least the manifest should look a little different now. Okay, you will see that a different Kubernetes YAML will be set, and this is the YAML that you're going to use the manifest to be able to deploy it in Lens, and all of the instructions are in there. So you still have about half an hour to be able to do this. I have an error, which is, that's why they say don't try from the okay, let me do this. If you follow the steps, I think you should be good, but I kind of tried to skip some steps, which is always a bad idea, right? Let me see if this works. I had to do the skip test, but that's fine. All right, so let me go back and we'll get back to that in a second. You have two options. One is you can deploy it to Lens. So basically what you have to do is you have to download the Lens, and then you have to download, install, and run Lens desktop, which is going to be running on your local system. Okay, and maybe what we can do is we can ask Edward to kind of talk about this a little bit. Okay, And once you have the Lens up and running, desktop up and running, you should see something like this, right? You set up, what CPU, how much memory, and all that. And this is the LDK that he was talking about. And you will see that, it's one of the clusters. And again, I think there was a question right at the beginning of the workshop. How do I add clusters? Sometimes, or most of the times, it's automatic. Okay, and again, Edward will talk about it. Then you'll set up the secrets. Okay, then plug in the deployment file, and that's all that there is required. Okay, so you create the resource, and then you do a port forwarding, right? Or maybe it's automatic, and we'll look at how Edward does that. And once you have this all up, you set up the port forwarding, and you're good to go. So that's how you're able to connect to a cluster IP. Okay, so this is a nice segue into seeing if my Kubernetes YAML got built. It did get built, which is miracles, right? So let me go into target Kubernetes YAML, okay, and bring that up again. Where's my? Okay, so something is wrong here. Let me get rid of this and try again. Sometimes it's all right. Okay. Oh, there you go. It's still giving Docker IO, which it should not be. It should be giving my correct Kubernetes YAML, and I'll figure out what's going on there. But if you follow the steps, I'm sure it'll work just fine. Okay. But essentially, it'll point to my Docker public registry, and you're good to go from that point onwards. Okay. Oh, I know what I did wrong, which is, like I said again, don't skip ID, I believe. So that's the problem, because I never set Docker login ID. Even though I Docker logged in, I never did that. Okay, so again, my apologies for having to bear with this, but this is a workshop where we are troubleshooting on the go, right? So what I forgot to do was,
It wouldn't make sense if you didn't run into issues.
exactly right. Yeah. So let's do this. Okay, and now if I echo the Docker login ID, it should be all right. So now I'm good to go, and what I can do is I can run the same thing, okay, which I did before, which is clean package and minus d skip tests. Actually, let's do this. Let's push it. Let's be brave enough and push the registry. Okay, so I'm pushing it, and here you notice that I'm using the Docker login ID, and it should work just fine. Okay. So while this is going on, Edward, do you want to show, like, maybe in 5 minutes how you deploy it to Lens? And then what we can do is we can let the attendees loose. We have about half an hour, and let them kind of go through the steps and give us some thumbs up as to where they are, and we can kind of help them with the workshop. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me take over from here. I could start off by sharing my screen. Rog,
yeah,
let
just
me
give
know.
me 1 second when I have to set up your screen for this. Okay. I will make it. Yeah. Just
let me know when.
Yeah. All right. I can see you and me. So now we're good to go, I think.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Okay, so now we're going to actually take that YAML file and deploy it to Lens. This isn't necessarily the traditional way how to deploy an application on top of Kubernetes, but for this workshop today, this is the approach we are going to take. And again, as Rog said, it's opinionated, it's a bit biased and so forth, but I think it's excellent to showcase really how you can deploy the application you just built on top of your environment very easily. So to start, I'm just going to take this a step back. It's extremely important to keep up and actually go and download Lens, which you can find here at our website, kslens.dev. Click download, as I showcased earlier today. It's an Electron application. It will download directly to your desktop. Once you have it downloaded, you can launch Lens, and you're going to open up Lens, and you're really not going to have anything within Lens initially. And what you'll have to do from here in order to actually move forward with the workshop is you're going to have to create a Lens ID. And the reason for this specifically is because you will be leveraging the Lens Pro trial, which is a trial series of Lens Pro that actually gives you the ability to leverage LDK. It's free for 30 days, no credit card needed, and just ping me directly if you want additional access. I do want to mention though that Lens is very much free. It's just if you want to leverage this optimized development environment, you would need to have the free trial. So in order to access the free trial, it's quite simple. You'll have this login here. You're going to need to actually click into it. It'll open up Lens. It'll ask you what subscription you would like. It's a free trial. You will not need a credit card and so forth. And Lens, again, is very much free to achieve full situational awareness. It's just when we give you this cluster, that's when you actually would be on the Lens Pro trial. So I just want to make that very clear. But if you bring your own environments, Minikube, Octo, K0s, MKE, GKE, Rancher, and so forth, you can add those clusters directly to Lens. You don't need to leverage this LDK environment. What we wanted to do for this workshop is give you an environment that you can leverage instead of spinning up a Minikube cluster, for example. But you can take that approach as well, where you can do the exact same thing we're about to showcase now with Minikube, with K0s, with any certified Kubernetes distro without the need to actually have a Lens Pro trial. Cool. I'll stop there and actually begin to move forward with the workshop and the portion on Lens. So real quick, what we see here is actually a Mirantis Kubernetes engine cluster currently added to Lens. I just want to talk real quick on some of the capabilities Lens has prior to finalizing the workshop. So here we can actually see how my cluster is performing in the last hour from the master to the worker node, the CPU, and the memory. You can see the capacity, you can see the number of pods, and of course you get real-time messages here at the bottom, really allowing you to understand what is happening within your current cluster. We'll touch on this in just a moment, but I want to now navigate actually back to LDK. So on the left-hand side here is where all your Kubernetes clusters will be added to. I can click LDK and I'll have it running. Now for y'all to get started with LDK, once you have your Lens Pro trial, you'll be able to view it here. It will say Lens Pro trial. And on the bottom right-hand side, it should say Lens Desktop Cube. Clicking onto Lens Desktop Cube is going to allow you to configure your optimized development environment for your particular needs, from the CPU to the memory to the disk size, and of course, the version. Now, I do want to reiterate that this is a K0s cluster, so LDK is leveraging the open source K0s cluster built by Team Lens and Mirantis. Now, once you have LDK up and running, it usually takes about a minute to go from the stopped state or not running state to the running state. You will have to enable this, click apply, select your specific configuration. I would actually just go with what is out of the box for demonstration purposes. So I'll click escape. It'll take a moment, again, about a minute to get up and running. Once it's up and running, you're going to see a screen like this. We currently don't have our metrics available, but of course we can actually add them through auto detect Prometheus, bring our own Prometheus, and so forth. There's no Prometheus on this cluster. That's why we don't see it, but we can add it if we choose to do so. So from here, and I just want to navigate back to the steps, just so everybody is very much aligned. Actually, I got rid of them, but that's okay. So we won't do that. From here, what you're going to want to do once your Kubernetes cluster is running, you're going to want to click secrets. And within secrets, you're going to click this plus button. That's actually going to allow you to create a secret. And again, you want to leverage the secrets you created earlier in the workshop that Rogs demonstrated. From here, we'll give the secret a name, ASTRA. We'll add the data, right? So ASTRA username, and this is quite important. Correct. And then you're going to add the value. That value is unique to your specific environment. I want to make that very clear. You can't use my value. It's going to be unique to you. So it's very important that you actually have the secrets handy, both the username and the password. So from here, you would do Astra password, and you would click create. I don't want to copy and paste the secrets here. because then you all will see it. I actually have it deployed already, but this is the step that you would take. Once you give it a name, select the namespace, insert the data, Astra username, and again, enter the value, Astra password, enter the value, click create.
And one of
But
the
here
cool
we can
things
actually,
is that it encrypts the username and password, right? So what you're
it
seeing there
does.
is not really the value, but it's encrypted so that if you want to demonstrate it, it's fine, right? So yeah,
Exactly, exactly. So here, this is not the password.
yeah.
That's why we have this show and remove. So you can actually very easily showcase it, remove it, and so forth. So it keeps it quite secure, which is excellent. Now, once you've added the secret to your Lens desktop Kubernetes environment, you're actually going to want to take that YAML code that you've developed and create the resource directly into Lens on top of LDK. So as mentioned earlier, Lens is very much a Kubernetes IDE. It also allows you to achieve full situational awareness. So from here, we'll navigate to this plus icon. And there's two items you can do here. You can go to the smart terminal. Now, this isn't part of the demo, but I just want to showcase that we are always leveraging the correct kubectl version of that cluster. So I'll navigate to this cluster. Real quick, kubectl version. We can see that it's always going to be unique to the cluster that you're currently connected to, and the kubectl will be in the correct context at all times. This is ensuring that you're going to be eliminating any user error when it comes to working with multiple Kubernetes clusters.
So
Now we
Edward,
can navigate back.
is there any chance you can increase the font size, or it's probably okay, but
How's
oh,
that?
that's much better. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see the version here, the Git version. I can navigate back to my other cluster and you can see it here, right? And you have that ability to switch between cluster and cluster while always containing that context. Super important when working with multiple Kubernetes clusters. I'm going to zoom out now.
It's fine.
Now we took a look at the terminal, but really what we want to do is create a resource. So the neat thing behind Lens is we actually provide all of our users with out of the box resources as well that you can deploy. So if I want to deploy an Nginx deployment in real time without actually having to wrestle with YAML, you have the ability to do so. Now we're not deploying Nginx. We're going to deploy the application, the to-do app directly in our environment. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to zoom out again, is I'm going to navigate to my notes, grab the YAML, copy and paste it, click create resource.
And you can copy and paste it directly from Gitpod. If you want to put it in notes, that's fine too.
Exactly, exactly. So I would recommend exactly what Rog said. Just grab it from Gitpod. And to do so, you will need to run that command line that is within the workshop to actually grab this YAML file. Now, everything is listed in the workshop within GitHub. So I accidentally closed the screen there, but just run that command that we provided for you. It'll generate the YAML, copy and paste the YAML, and all you have to do once it's copy and pasted here is click create and close. So I've actually already created this deployment or this resource in my environment. And to showcase that, I can navigate over to my workloads, click into pods, and see that this has been running for the last 52 minutes. So I actually followed along in the workshop as much as I was able to, and I was able to deploy this roughly 50 minutes ago on top of my environment. We can see the namespace that this application is deployed to, and so forth. We can see the deployments, the daemon sets, and so forth. So really what Lens is doing is it's giving us that full situational awareness, everything within this environment, from our pods, our deployments, our stateful sets, our replica sets, and so forth. So here, we'll navigate to our pods. We'll actually take a look at this pod. We can see, again, in a granular view from CPU, memory, network, file system. We see a drop in a file system, that'd be worrisome. We can see all the labels, all the annotations, what replica set it's controlled by, the status of the pod, the node it's running on, the containers that are associated to it. And of course, we can view pod logs if we choose to do so. And this is going back to what we showcased earlier within that development environment, that Lens comes in towards the end of a developer's workflow. Here I can access logs, I can navigate between containers and see what owns it. So this would help us troubleshoot. Now, what we want to do from here, now that our pod is running, we're actually going to navigate to network. On the bottom left-hand side, click services, find the service, and here we have the ability to port forward directly into this application without running any command line. Now that we port forwarded into that application, I could say workshop DataStax/lens. We can say lens is pretty cool. Welcome everyone, and so forth, right? So the application is working. We deployed the application to our development environment. We reviewed whether or not that pod is successfully running, what the state of the pod is. We are able to view all of the details associated to the pod, the labels, the annotations, the namespace it's associated to. We can view our logs. We even have the ability, dependent again, team, on your role-based access control, to edit this resource through the YAML and so forth. So we were able to port forward into the application, which is fantastic. We also have some other very cool features within Lens. And if you don't mind, Rags, I'll do a little bit of a deeper demo of Lens real quick here. You even have the ability to actually scan any images and containers within your environment directly through Lens. Oh, could not scan image vulnerabilities. I wonder why that's happening. But let's take a look here, navigate to our images in my other cluster, and it's actually going to tell us the specific vulnerabilities of these images. We can actually showcase the vulnerabilities, see the CVEs, see that they're critical, click into this particular CVE, read about it, understand it, why it's happening, and we can also give you a detailed guide on how to fix that particular vulnerability. So again, Lens is providing you with that multi-cluster management, switching from cluster to cluster while always maintaining the correct context. We have the ability to view everything in our cluster, from the workloads to the config maps to our secrets, our resources, our network, persistent volume claims, all in one place, and access all of the details necessary to be able to work with Kubernetes at scale. Here we also have the ability to deploy Helm charts directly into our environment. So I can look for like Argo CD. I can click here. It'll open up the Helm chart. It'll tell us all about the Helm chart. We'll be able to actually click into it, see who created it, and so forth. All of the details, step-by-step guides. I can click install. Click install. Now I have no idea what this Helm chart is, but again, LDK, it's a local development environment. I'm not too worried about installing something directly here. I can view the Helm release, which is going to actually tell me everything about this deployment, where it sits. So we can see it's in the default namespace. We can click into here, can get all of the necessary resources, the secrets that were created, the config maps that were created, the cluster roles. I mean, everything that you would need to access when working with Kubernetes is visible in a graphical user interface within Lens itself. So I'm going to stop there. I know we went through so many different things today, and I'm going to hand it back over to Rogs. But I want to thank each and every single one of you for at least sticking up to this point with us. It's a long session, and Rogs, I'll hand it back over to you.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a nice segue into what I was going to say next, which is like, we have had a few people drop out. So I think, your chances of winning a swag is pretty good if you hang on for about maybe 15 more minutes, right? Maybe just before the top of the hour, I will do the Menti. But for now, what you can do is you can kind of try it out yourself. But before you do that, I wanted to show you this, that, basically what the image you can see here, has the rags ns, which is my, my container registry, right? So it's pulling the right image and standing it up in Kubernetes like I want to, okay? All right, so enough said about that. Let's go through the presentation. Okay, and I'll give you guys a little bit of time to try this out. If somebody has already finished, I'm going to pause for hands-on. So, because that's the part that I know that most of you like. So if any of you have completed exercise 10, I see a couple of thumbs up, Abdul Nazir and Chris Arnold. And I know that Moises Salazar, you're having some problems with Gitpod. And Edmund Bet, copying to Gitpod is proving to be difficult. If you're still around, let us know, and we'd be glad to help you out. Okay. But let me give it like 5, maybe 10 more minutes. And again, hang on. You have a good opportunity to win swag. Okay. Um, and again, if you want to recollect what we talked in the workshop, we're gonna have tease you with some questions, but it's gonna be pretty easy. So the I'll talk about the quiz in a little bit, but for the next 5-10 minutes, I'm not gonna talk, and I'll let you guys kind of try this out. Again, remember, if you created the Astra DB token, what you're going to do is you're going to import the credentials into Gitpod, and from there you're going to build it. You're going to take the YAML file and deploy it into your Kubernetes cluster. I mean, if you have another Kubernetes cluster handy, you can do that there as well. If you don't want to use the Lens desktop, that's fine. But if you have Lens desktop already running, I suggest you kind of do it there as well. But kind of gives you an idea of the entire inner loop, and I think Edward talked about this Argo CD. There are a bunch of other kind of robust CI/CD platforms, but we're not talking about that. We are talking about kind of the inner loop here today, where we do this over and over and over again, right? And that's what I wanted to stress here. Just to kind of round that up. Okay, I will not talk for the next 9.5 minutes. This is the time when we don't do anything. And feel free to ask some questions on chat if you want. Just a quick interrupt. If any of you completed exercise 10, please put a thumbs up or just let me know which um, step you're in. I don't want to wait for too long. If you guys have decided to kind of do it after, that's perfectly fine. So let me know in the chat. So anybody wants to put in the chat if you want a little bit more time, otherwise we can go straight to Menti. Just let me know if you need like maybe 3 or 4 more minutes, to try it out. Just put it in the chat and I will wait for a little bit. Otherwise we can just jump straight to Menti and try to wrap this up. Okay, I don't see anything in the chat, so I'm not quite sure if you guys have decided to kind of do it later, which is fine. But let's try to wrap up. If we do get done earlier, so be it. So let me see. Start some music here. Hopefully it's not too loud. If the music is too loud, let me know. Can you guys hear the music at all? Or all right. So moving on. All right, so in terms of resources, let's do Menti and then we'll finish up with the resources. All right, so let's go here and start the quiz. Again, use the code. All right, let's go into Menti. Just give me a second. Can you guys hear me? Okay, you may have to re-enter here. So let me try again. My apologies for having lost the connection. I have no idea what happened there. Can we try again? So the code is 6110-4421. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I definitely lost my connection, so my apologies. Something to do with my service provider. Well, it's never happened before. We lose everybody. Let's give it a couple of minutes for other people to join as well. Okay, so we can skip all this because we've seen this before. Okay, we have 10 people, so now I'm good to go. All right. So we finished this. Now is the quiz. All right. So let's see. Question 1 of 6. See how many people are ready to fast, but most importantly answer correctly. What is the cool feature of today's workshop? ASTRA, Quarkus, GitHUB, oh. And really, I have only one person playing. Can we try to connect again? See if there is a problem here. Okay. Moving on. Let's see what happens next. Leaderboard is Bill because he's the only guy who voted. For some reason, nobody else could vote. Okay, but let's see what happens. You still have 2 and 3 positions. Again, use the code 6110-4421. 61104421, I believe. 61104421. I'll give people again a little bit of time to join. Okay. Anybody else joining? Okay, we have a few more people joining. Let's give it a couple of minutes. If you want, just go into menti.com again and do 61104421. Okay, almost there. Okay, I only have one person joining in. On to question 2. I am going to be starting the question again. 61104421. You have a good chance of winning. Just if you have trouble, just go back to menti.com and put in the code again, because again, my apologies, I seemed like my network had some issues. Yeah, I'm seeing more and more people joining in. I know there are quite a few people watching. It's just that, because of the networking difficulty, you may have had issues. So let's try again. Go into menti.com and put in the code 61104421. Okay? All right. Yeah, a few people joining. Let's see how this goes. I think Bill has a good chance of winning because he was the only one to answer first question. All right. Answer fast, but most importantly, answer correctly. Okay? File we modified and added credentials to connect to the ASTRA database securely. Which one was it? Was it application properties, pom.xml, ASTRA to-do.java, or none of the above? Which one did we use that we modified and added credentials to connect to the ASTRA database securely? Perfect. 2 people got it all right. So let's look at the leaderboard. And we have Bill and Vicky in a close competition there. Oh, maybe not. Bill is far ahead because he answered the question number 1. All right, moving on. Next one, you still have an opportunity. All that you need to do is, if you go to menti.com, put 61104421. All right. So we have 5 people now, so I think it's going to be interesting now. Okay, I'm going to start the count. And which container-related Maven plugin did we use in the workshop? I kind of alluded to that. Was it a Java plugin? Was it a POM plugin? Was it a Maven plugin? Maven is the tool. Or was it a GITHUB plugin? Specifically for containers. And a few people answering. Time's up. Let's see how you guys are doing. Oh, 2 people got it wrong. Only 1 person got it right. It was the GITHUB plugin that we used, for containerization. Remember we copied everything into a subdirectory in GITHUB and all that. All that was possible using the GITHUB plugin. So let's see how the leaderboard is shaping up. Let me see if Bill is still on top. 1741. Vicky is 725. And John and Hula Hope are 0 and 0, but you still have a chance of winning because you persisted. You stayed with me, so which is kind of cool. All right, next one. Question 4 of 6. We have 3 more, and we're almost done. Answer fast, but most importantly, answer correctly. I alluded to this. Native image generation with Quarkus requires what kind of VM? Does it require a Linux VM? Does it require a Graal VM? Or does it require a Java VM, right? And the answer is... What's up? Graal VM. 2 people got it right. Of course, you need the Linux VM and the Java VM for other things, right? But specifically for native image generation, you require the Graal VM, and that's the thing that I said was already pre-installed for you, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's see how the leaderboard is shaping up. I don't know if Bill got it wrong or right. Constant Learner is back, and Constant Learner comes into second position. John, you still have hope. There are two more questions, so let's see how that goes. Question 5 or 6. Answer fast, but most importantly, answer correctly. What Kubernetes distro is Lens based on? Is it K0S, is it K3S, or is it K something S? It has to be correct, meaning it has to be exact. 3, 2, 1, and time's up. And some people got K0S, some people thought it was K3S. It's a good guess, but it's not based on K3S, it's based on K0S. And somebody put K something S, which is perfectly fine. But I don't know if you're going to do that, right? Let's see. What is Bill doing? Bill is doing wow. Leaps and bounds above. Constant Learner. Vicky and John are very close. Or Constant Learner and Vicky are close. Let's see how John is doing on the last few. Last one, actually, which is question 6 of 6. And John, you still have a chance to kind of leapfrog. Let's see. Answer fast. Just more importantly, answer correctly. What facilitates connection to the app running on a cluster IP within the cluster? Is it the Cassandra cluster? Is it ngrok? Is it port forwarding? Or is it ping? I think we did this, and you probably saw this. Yes, 2 people got it right with port forwarding. Cassandra cluster is good, but it doesn't really help you with app running on a cluster IP. Okay, you still have to do port forwarding. All right. So let's see. And the leaderboard looks like this. Bill is the winner. Congratulations. We'll tell you exactly what to do, how to get, and Constant Learner and Vicky. If you haven't gotten your swag before, you can basically take a screenshot, and I'll show you exactly how to do that in a second. Don't take this screenshot, but take a screenshot from your phone or something and send it to us, and we should be able to send you or ship you the swag to anywhere in the world. Okay, so with that said, we also have a open feedback. Feel free to add things here. What would you like to improve in the next workshop? I will leave it going for a little bit to see if any of you have anything. Just give it a little bit of time, and then I'll move back to the presentation, point you at some of the other resources, and then call it a wrap. Call it done. Any feedback that you have, happy to show this here. All right. Let's go back and look here. Let me finish up the presentation here. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to take a screenshot and you're going to send it. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to send the screenshot which has your name in there. You are the winner, right? Take a screenshot and fill the form at datastacks.io workshop swag. Okay, and if you want, take a screenshot here too, so that you remember, or just write down the form URL. And with that, if you want more detailed discussions, we have a Discord channel which kind of goes through all of that. More sustained discussions. We have a number of different workshops that you can sign up to. datastacks.com/workshops on a number of different topics. You can also do, like I said, participate in Discord. And as you know, we have Menti. But if you don't want to use or you don't want to attend the live workshops, there are other resources as well. I call myself as being in the golden age of developer, where we have a lot of resources, and most of these are available for free. We even get a badge for doing what we're supposed to do, right? You can try that out. You can bear, there is something for Quarkus Cassandra, as you can see here. So if you complete the homework, which we will grade, then you can get a badge. Some Quarkus for Spring developers is something that one of my other authors wrote, authors of the workshop, Eric D'Andrea. Getting started with serverless functions is right here as well. Or you can try Cassandra yourself. There are a number of different ways. The easiest way is just go to Quarkus.io, guides Cassandra, or github.com/datastacksdevs workshop Quarkus Cassandra, which is this workshop. Okay. And with that said, thank you very much. Apologies for the network disconnection that happened very abruptly, and had nothing to do with that. With that said, thank you again.
And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.
Imagine a being gifted with powers from the goddess of Cassandra, who grew those powers until she could multiply at will, move with limitless speed, and unmask hidden knowledge. With those powers, she was able to fully understand the connectedness of the world. What she saw was a world in need of understanding. From that day forward, she sought to bestow her powers on all who came into contact with her, empowering them to achieve wondrous feats.